In this week's Parsha, Parshas Chukas, the Parsha starts off, Zois Chukas HaTorah, this is the Chukah of the Torah, Shatziva Hashem Lemar, Dabrel B'nei Yisrael, Vayichu Alecha Parah Aduma, and take for yourselves a Parah Aduma, a red Parah, Tamimah, complete, Ein Ba Mum, it cannot have any mum, and also Asher Loyal oil. And you should give it to Elazar HaKohen. You should take it to Mechutz LaMachaneh, slaughter it there, and then burn it and use the afer to use for its purposes for Tahara. Exactly what's the understanding of this mitzvah? Obviously, it was a choik. It was very shver. The Umas HaOlam asked, and the Satan asked, what's the time of this mitzvah? What's the tachlis of this mitzvah? And if you look in the Minchas Chinuch, he explains, he says, V'alpi shekol mitzvahs maleni libi lichtoiv Ramazim, even though I always try to give a little bit of an explanation on the mitzvahs and even some chukim, but over here, that they were trying to explain it, but Shlomo HaMelech said, Kol taimiyah Torah chutz mizu, I can understand all the Torah except for this mitzvah. Shomer aleh amarti achochma v'hi rechoyke mimenu. That this mitzvah is so far away from me, I have no understanding whatsoever. What's the pshat? Says Minchas Chinuch. He explains, because here the tahirim became tamei and the tameim became tahor. Right, the ones who were sprinkled the afer upon them became tahor, but the ones who burnt the parah became tamei. We always find that whoever burnt the karbonis, the parah and the seirim, the ones who burnt them became betam begodim based srifasan. So why over here any different? Says the Minchas Chinuch here it was very different, because here it wasn't only that the ones that burnt it became tamei, but hafuch, the ones who got sprinkled with the afer became tar. That you never find by any other mitzvah. Maybe it's such a mitzvah like this, says Shlomo HaMelech, there was no understanding at all, says the Minchas Chinuch. I didn't even try to explain a remez for this mitzvah. And even a little more, you see that it was shechted b'chutz l'machaneh, which we don't find anywhere else. So this mitzvah was so deep in its choik, says the Minchas Chinuch, even Shlomo HaMelech said, rechoyke mimeni. If we go a little farther in the parsha, by the Mei Meriva, it says that when there was no mind for the Eidu after Miriam died, and they came to Moshe and Aaron, they complained, and they said, "Why you bring us to the Midbar to die? Why bring us from Mitzrayim to a place hara hazard that was bad? No, there's no zera, there's no te'ena, there's no geffen, there's rimoin." Moshe came, and Hashem appeared to him and said, "Kachas hamate, go get the stick. V'hakel ze'eda, gather them." Atav Aaron achicha v'dibarte el hasela leinehem, and hit and speak to the sela, and water will come out. So we know Rashi's pshat, that Rashi says that the Ravera of the Chet of Moshe Rabbeinu was that he did not speak to the rock, but he hit the rock, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that it was a chesar in the pasuk that he said, there was a chesar over here that you weren't mekadesh Hashem enough, and therefore you can't go into Eretz Yisrael. That's the pasuk pshat according to Rashi. If you look at the Ramban says a little different than Rashi. He says the chet of Moshe was that he got angry, which you don't find anywhere ever that Moshe Rabbeinu became angry. But over here, because they were complaining and they did not believe Moshe Rabbeinu that he was going to do what they wanted to get them water, and they were still complaining, when maybe he got angry a little bit, whatever that means, angry on his madrega, maybe that was his chet, and that caused him not to go to Eretz Yisrael. If you look in the Maral, the Maral says over here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to establish over here through this nes a very high inyan of Amunah and B'tachin, that the Klal Yisrael would see HaKadosh Baruch Hu so clearly that their Amunah would be so strong, it would never waver. And because Moshe Rabbeinu did not follow instructions of what Hashem wanted, and he hit the rack instead of speaking to it, so that took down the Amunah, because hitting a rack, of course, was a ness, but you could say that hitting it caused he had an action, and there was a reaction from the rack that brought out water. So it's a nest, but not as high as he just spoke to it, and he didn't interact at all with the rack at all in a way that something could cause water to come out. And still the water came out. Says the Maral, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to bring out such a high level of Munah to Klai, so that they would be so high level that they would never waver again, and that was not happening now. He did not complete that mission. As I state in Maral. If you look at the Sforno says that Moshe Rabbeinu, he talks about 3 levels of Nisim. We'll just talk about the last 2. One ness is that you could do something that and get the makar of the teva to be a nest, like Moshe Rabbeinu did. He hit the rack, and there was a nest that water came out, but there was a makar that you could say there was some type of a siba here that caused water to come, a rack, even though, of course, usually there's no water in a rack, but at least there was something to identify with. Second, the 3rd level was yesh ma'ayin. Speaking to a rack and water coming out is like the nest, but by Kairach, when the ground opened up, a tibla aretz SP, and then it recovered itself. Like we said, that was not an earthquake. That's what we spoke last week. It wasn't an earthquake where there's a crater that remains. Here, the whole bria opened, swallowed them like a mouth, and closed like your mouth after you swallow food, and went back into its regular state. So that's yesh ma'ayin. There's no such a thing. Here too, if you would have spoken to the rack and not hit it, you would have brought out such a level of ness that Klai could never have been able to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us to a bad place, there's nothing here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could take anything that even is a doime, like a rack, has no shaykhs, and make it into a davar toiv to help Klai Yisrael get what they need. But Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do that. Mele only hit the rack. That was only level 2 nace. So there they say, he said, look, I brought you water. So they can't have a shaila on him that he's not the shliach, because look what I did. But the higher level, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could take anything to make it l'toiv, there already that fell. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, you would have been makadosh my name to such a level, that would have been unbelievable for Klai Yisrael to see, and they never would have had sfeikis. But you didn't do that. Mela, that's why he had a punishment. He couldn't go into Eretz Yisrael, because he failed in what he was supposed to do. A Guten Shabbos.